Rainier Valley Historical Society's mission is to collect. Our boundaries are from Dearborn Street to Seattle city limits and from I-5 to Lake Washington.
Change over time and combine with other cultures and stuff. So, you know, straight, whatever, traditional Japanese food would be great to hear about, but also whatever variations you've come up with in your life.
I was born in Auburn.
Okay.
Not Washington, California.
Oh, okay.
And grew up on a fruit ranch.
Oh, wow. Is that northern or southern?
Northern.
Okay.
Placer County.
Okay.
And, of course, we were all rounded up and put into I call it concentration camp, but anyway,
which one?
From there I went to Chicago.
Okay.
I left the camp when we were allowed to. Of course, and then I got married in Chicago, and then I came back here. Mm-hmm. And my husband was from the Northwest, so I came up here. Anyway, as far as food, I used to put on New Year's feast for all the relatives here on my husband's side, because none of my relatives were here. Mm-hmm. They're in California. But from last year, my daughter and my nieces and my sister-in-law didn't want me to do everything, so they prepared the things that they knew how to prepare. But it is straight Japanese food.
Okay, so is it a traditional Japanese New Year thing?
Yeah.
So what do you serve?
Well, I serve futomaki. You know what futomaki?
Can you spell it for me?
Futomaki. It's separated. This is a book that my sister group put out in California. My younger sister is a real good cook. Futomaki is a sushi.
Oh, okay.
With the seaweed. Makizushi is what it's called.
Okay.
And the gunny sack, well, we used to call the gunny sack from when we were real young, is the agezushi.
Okay. How do you spell that?
Age? Agezushi.
Okay.
This is what it is, agezushi.
Oh,
and
it's
in a soybean sack.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. You've never eaten Japanese food?
No, I don't think. Well, I've eaten some Japanese food, but not that.
Oh.
Sounds really interesting. So, what do you describe it for me?
Well, it's just a little. It comes in a square, and you cook it, and you flavor it. I cut it in half first, and then stuff it with rice, with vegetable and vinegar flavoring in it, and that's your agezushi.
So that's at New Year's.
Yeah. Well, I can do it anytime, but that's one of the things I fix for New Year's. And then the makizushi, the seaweed roll, futomaki is another one. And I fix the usual, like miso salmon, sunomono, which is cucumber vinegar, and what else? Oh, I fix 2 different kinds of chicken. One is teriyaki, the other one is almond chicken.
Almond? Okay.
Almond flavored chicken.
Okay.
And then my nephew does the barbecue pork for me.
Wow.
And what else do I fix? Oh, and then I have the black beans. This is the Japanese style black beans, not the
Not Chinese.
not Chinese or not what you find in Cajun cooking or.
Oh, okay.
It's I get it in a can because I could make it from scratch, but if I could get it in a can, well, I have so many other things to do. It's sweetened black beans. Then I have, we're supposed to display lobster, but it's so expensive.
So what do you mean supposed to?
Well, New Year's tradition.
Oh, okay.
Like in Japan. And that I learned this from my mother because I've never been to Japan.
Oh, yeah.
So what I learned, I've been wanting to go. What I learned is from my mother. And I used to help her at New Year's, and she used to fix these things. So it sort of rubbed off on me. And the reason we have black beans is for health, mame na mame. And I don't have the lobster anymore. I have the shrimps, the ones with the head on.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of times it's just boiled shrimp. And it's even better if it has the eggs on it.
Okay.
That's for fertility. And let's see, mame na mame, and for ebi for fertility.
How do you spell that, ebi?
I call it ebi.
Okay.
EBI.
Okay.
And it'll come to me, I guess. Then I have spinach with a sauce on it. Of course, sunomono, cucumber vinegared with and I usually put ginger in it because that's refreshing, And, oh gee, what else do I have? I said 2 kinds of chicken and the miso salmon.
What about sweets? Is there dessert?
Oh, for dessert I have yokan.
What is that?
It's made from beans, the real tiny azuki. Azuki is the beans. And I have the red one and the green one. And the green is made from lima beans.
Oh, okay.
And it has sugar in it, and it's cooked, and it has agar in it to make it set, form. And then I fix the agar, the clear content is what it's called. Content. And I flavor it with either peppermint or lemon. And I can change the color. If I get the white, I don't know whether you've seen the agar, it's the same thing as what the bacteriologists will use.
It's the same thing that scientists use to grow their...
Agar.
Oh, wow.
If you go to the Japanese store, you'll see that. Well, you can find it in different grocery stores.
Yeah.
But that comes in white. And then I noticed that Filipinos use a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And it comes in green, too.
Okay.
But I use this for the red content, and I use the white and color it with lemon, yellows for lemon flavor. Mm. Or I could change it to green and flavor it with lime or whatever.
Nice.
But
so it's a very beautiful display. It sounds like.
Well, to save space, I have these stacking Jew buckle that I put different things in different layers. And what else? And then the vegetables, all kinds of vegetables cooked, the Japanese way. Mm-hmm. And in there I have the burdock, bamboo, burdock, bamboo, and the mushrooms, the shiitake, the small ones, and dried tofu. It comes really dried, and then you soak it and flavor it. What else is there? Well, the veggie tray, you can cook any carrots. I said burdock in there. Burdock. And then with using burdock, I do the kimpira. Kimpira, cut real thin and flavor it with soy sauce and sesame. Uh-huh, okay. Cook it in sesame oil and with a little stock in it. But the whole basis of cooking Japanese food is good stock. And any Japanese cook will tell you that. And actually, it's up to you how you use your stock. With that stock, you can make the soups, the clear soup or the miso soup. Mm-hmm. And I like to use a little bit of red miso and white miso mixed together. Mm-hmm. That gives it a lot more flavor. And
so you make your own stock then?
Yeah, at New Year's I do. Mm-hmm. But for cooking, fast cooking every day, I use I use the what do you call stock that comes already in packages, and then on top of that I use kelp when I cook even my soup. But so you don't leave that kelp in there too long. You just throw it in there, let it boil, and take it out. So
that's a good trick.
But gives it a bit of flavor. And of course, all kinds of pickles, Japanese style pickles.
So how are they different from American style?
Well, it's just salt. It's pickled in salt, brine, I should say. Mm-hmm. And then you could get it already by the pickled radish. Mm-hmm. That stinky pickle is what my grandkids used to call it. But it's sweet, with a little bit of vinegar flavor. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's no end to what kind of pickles you can put out,
right,
of course.
Right. So do you buy the pickles? You don't make them?
I make them.
Oh, you do make them?
Most of them.
Oh, great.
Like cabbage, napa, and cucumber. I use the pickling cucumber. I pickle it for about a week, except for the cucumber. Cucumber you can pickle overnight with it just so it has a little bit of salty flavor to it. Mm-hmm. And Yeah, and then the radish, I buy it in the jar or in a long package that comes from Japan. So, what else?
Are there other special holidays where there's certain dishes?
Well, like Girls' Day, uh, I didn't do it, but there are families that cook sweet rice with the red beans in it. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's for, on top of it, that's for any happy occasion.
Okay. So sweet
with
rice
the
with
red beans.
And when is Girls' Day?
Girls' Day is, let's see, March. I think the first week in March.
Okay.
And boys is in May, first week in May. But, I mean, they don't celebrate that year.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, I forgot about the, you could get these fish cakes.
Oh, okay.
Say like at Mutual. I don't try to make my own. I buy it, and that's one of the things that I buy. But the main thing is at New Year's is getting together. And ever since my oldest sister-in-law used to do that, and then she had she stopped doing it because she said she couldn't manage, and she moved into a smaller apartment. And so then I took over, and I used to invite all of my husband's side, and then a few of our friends, that one year my son invited his band over, and then a few outsiders. Oh, and my flower students I invited, but I only had a couple at the time. I stopped teaching. And then I have a grandniece. It doesn't matter where she is, she will come home for that New Year's get-together. Right now she's in Washington. She works for NOAA.
Oh, okay.
But right now she's working for Senator Inoue. So she gets to go to Hawaii quite often. And so she stops in and sees her dad. But we don't get to see her every time she, comes by. But for New Year's, she makes it a point to come. Christmas and New Year's, I guess. And then my daughter has a friend that she used to work with at the UW, so they used to come.
That sounds nice.
But I'm amazed at anybody that can eat Japanese food that never experienced Japanese food. But her friend, the couple, really enjoys Japanese food. Of course, even my children, except for my daughter, she'll eat anything Japanese. In fact, she can eat more Japanesey things than I can. But my sons won't touch like raw fish. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's another thing I have is raw fish. And calamari and octopus. But see, my sons won't eat those things, but my daughter loves it. And I think That's because when they were young, small, young, uh, they were all born in Chicago. And I brought my children when the boys were 5 and my daughter was just turning 1 here. And this is why the difference in the likes and dislikes. My boys won't eat, one of them will eat fish, but the other one won't. I have twin boys. Yeah. And, you would think if one would like that, the other one would, but no.
You gotta be different.
Yeah. So, but my daughter will eat anything Japanese. In fact, she used to sit with Grandpa here and eat the most atrocious Japanese thing that I wouldn't even think of eating. But, that's a way to develop taste. Yeah. And she can eat salmon egg, whereas my husband and I couldn't eat salmon egg. Although my husband would prepare it, because he used to go salmon fishing a lot. And he worked for Link's,
Yeah.
And Link would give him eggs. And in fact, he showed him how to prepare the eggs. Oh, yeah. So he would bring it home, prepare it, and give it to my daughter. Because I just couldn't. Yeah. He wouldn't eat it either. And of course the boys wouldn't even look at it, And yet, it's a funny thing. I love caviar. And flying fish egg, I can eat. I can eat shrimp eggs. But, that salmon egg, I just...
So can you tell me a little bit about how, did your family incorporate American food traditions into, like, Thanksgiving?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
But my mother, only thing she did was say, like, prepare hamburgers for us. But we didn't eat it in a bun. We ate it with rice.
Oh, wow.
And she would stuff pepper, because we had a little garden, and she would grow all sorts of, vegetables, and pepper was one of them. And there isn't too many ways you can fix pepper. So she used to stuff it. And we'd have stuffed pepper, or then we'd have it with soy sauce.
That's great.
And, but she fixed pancakes. I think my folks were a little different from the other first generation, because my dad would fix stew for us. On his stew it's just like, not the gravy stew. It was just clear broth, Now, we used to have, in the summertime, the cull of the fruits, we couldn't pack. They're the bruised and, So, instead of playing after, all day, we played all day, except for my daughter, my sister and I at noontime. We would cook the rice, and my mother would cook whatever, to go with the rice. And then dinner time, she would cook, but he would make us sit and pit those fruits, and he would dry them. And he would tell us that, it's for New Year's expense. And so he would tell us that he would pay us at New Year's. So day after day we would sit. But he would bring home, after he delivered the fruits to in town, he would buy us popsicle. He would buy watermelon, and he would buy ice cream fixings, and we would, fix that. And I think I knew of no other family out in the country that did or had luxurious things, like that. But to me, that was kind of a treat, and sort of expected it during the summer. And
were there other families around where Japanese
oh yeah,
families
they were fruit ranchers, and he would make beer. We would make root beer, and he'd get us the fixings, And we lived on an orchard with grapes, but the grapes weren't marketable because we didn't have enough of it on the ranch. So wine grape he would pick, and get permission from the owner, and he would make wine. And his taste buds weren't good, so he would ask me to taste it. And I would say, if it was sweet, I'd say, oh, this is good. But he really didn't know what the taste should be.
Right.
And he used to make sake. Well, he's gone, so I don't think that anybody could do it. See, he worked in a brewery in Japan before he came over. So, he knew how to go about doing it, but he never drank. But he used to fix it for New Year's to give to his cronies,
So
And
how do you make sake?
Well, you have to have the sweet rice type thing. And then you ferment that. And then, or you steam it, and then I think it was, you ferment it, and then you put it in a vat and let it ferment until it starts bubbling. Then you put it in canvas sacks and then squeeze it. And what squeezes out is your sake.
Wow.
But he used to make sweet sake for us to drink in New Year's, the kids, And the regular sake he would serve to, because in those days, they made the rounds of friends, to pay respect. It was almost a given, that you, and the first day, just the men, we couldn't go. Second day we were allowed to go visit. But anyway, so then he would ask me to taste the sake. I didn't know what it should taste like,
Right.
So I used to say, if it was on the sweet side, oh, it's good. And he would make white lightning, you know what that is, because he used that to cure persimmon. The big persimmon that are bitter, he used to cure that, and he used to ship it out. And I remember addressing boxes to Seattle, to Uwajimaya, and Salt Lake, and Denver, San Francisco, LA, and Sacramento. He used to make a trip to bring it there because we were about 53 miles outside of Sacramento. But anyway, he did that as a hobby. He was a kind of person that just couldn't sit still. And so, well, since he knew how to do it, in the wintertime, he couldn't do anything else. And then my mother used, so the fruits that he dried, he used to make peach pies for us.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I know of no other family that made peach pie. Then my mother would make meringue pie.
Wow.
She went to a woman's group and learned how.
Wow,
So then
that's
she
great.
would practice lemon pie, meringue pie, that.
Wow, that's
And
great.
of course, my dad he must have learned from. See, he worked on the railroad, and in fact, I don't know whether some of the railroads that he worked on are still there. It was Great Northern, that went north and south. Until he decided, well, he better settle down. So he called my mother. Well, in Japan, you have a go-in-between person that, hooks up the couples. Well, marital consultant, I guess you would call
Like
them.
a matchmaker.
Yeah, matchmaker.
Okay.
Well, my mother was from a little town in the same prefecture as my father. In fact, after the Russo-Japanese War, Perry had opened up the, what you call, what should I say, immigration. And in fact, they wanted people to come over from Japan. And the reason my dad came over was he went to Yokohama to board a ship to go to war. And while he was there, they said they declared peace. So then he was stranded, and he was debating whether to go back to his home or, being adventurous, come to America. And because he had a younger brother, but that was it. No, family ties other than that. So he came over, and I think every Issei, first generation that come over, intend to go back. That's, my dad too. And so when my oldest sister was about 4 or 5, they took my older sister and my 2 brothers back to Japan, and my uncle was a carpenter. So my dad built a house, and it's still there in Gobo, Wakayama. But we gave it to our uncle because none of us wanted it. And my dad and my mother, I suppose they wanted to go back, but we told them, don't go back, because then the people there will not accept you back, because, after the war, they were suffering over there. And we weren't going back, none of us. And so my dad said, well, if the children aren't going back, I'm not going. So he stayed here. And in fact, he spent most of his life here. And my mother, at one time, wanted to go back. But, of course, since none of us went back, she stayed. And she became a naturalized citizen.
Oh, really?
And both my mother-in-law and father-in-law became naturalized citizens.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the war? Like you were living in California on this
Yeah, and we
ranch.
were rounded up, and we went to an assembly center right outside of Sacramento, which was called Valerga. And it was right next to McClellan Air Force Base. And you could see the planes dogfighting up above us, you know. Well, we were only there a month. And then we were shipped up to Tule Lake, which is near Klamath Falls, right on the other side of the Oregon border. And there I spent 3.5 years.
And how old were you?
19 at the time. And I was set on becoming a nurse, which was taken away from me, because I couldn't, well, I could have left camp after a couple of years, you know, in camp. They were allowed. But then I had no support.
Right.
My folks were in camp and they couldn't support me. And so I decided, well, long as the folks are in camp, I was going to stay with them because my oldest sister was married, my older brother was married, and then I had another brother above me, but I figured, well, you know, somebody has to look after them.
Yeah.
And they weren't that young. See, my dad was past retiring age. He was 60-something. So, and he said, the reason we stayed in Tule was, he said, if I have to move again, it's going to kill me. So this is why we stayed in Tule. And of course I stayed with him. So I stayed in camp 3.5 years. And then I left as soon as the war was over and they opened up the Western Front. This is where we lived, was Sacramento was Western Front. And no one could go back there that once lived there. But after the war, then they were allowed to go back there. So what happened was my oldest sister, who was married, went back there. My oldest brother, who got married in camp, went back. And my youngest sister went to San Francisco, and she worked for the government.
Wow.
and so then, when my folks were, you know, leaving, they wanted to go back to Sacramento. So at least I knew that my sister was there. So my friend told me to come to Chicago because I decided, since I wasn't able to get into any nursing school at the time, I was going to go into medical technology. So I went to Wesley Memorial Hospital. They had disbanded that program. So then I thought, well, the pathologist there was real nice. She said, I'll give you the run of the labs. You can learn anything you want, you know, and everything you want to. And while I worked there, you know. But I decided, well, gee, you know, that's not, and then a young pathologist replaced her and called every one of us into his office. The minute I stepped in, you know what he said to me? You have no problems. And I thought, what are you talking about? Here, I was 3.5 years in a concentration camp, and I'm trying to get back into I have no problems. I can't even get into the school I wanted to get. So I worked, I think, a month after that, and I left. I went to University of Chicago, and I tried to get into their lab school, and the personnel officer said, there's a big waiting list. Wow, gee, by then I was, 24 or something. I thought if I wait any longer, I'm going to have to wear a cane going to class. So she asked me if I would work there. So I worked for a real nice, he was researching tuberculosis. And so I went to work in research then. And yeah, he was really he asked me if I was, well, they prepare you, you know. If you're not positive, they make you positive if you work in a research lab.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So we worked on PAS and streptomycin. And I think that's one of the medications that they still use, if I'm not mistaken. You know. But he was well known in well, I should call him respiratory specialists. You know.
So while you were trying to get into school and stuff, did you feel any kind of anti-Japanese sentiment was holding you back, or was it just?
Well, no, it wasn't holding me back. There was nothing I could get into. But I did hit on one very, well, it was when I was shopping. I lived on the north end. And I went to a clothing store. And I was shopping, and this, I don't know what nationality she was. She must have been either Polish or, because there were a lot of Polish people in there. And, I mean, with a real awful accent, she comes up to me and says, "You should go back to where you came from." So I thought, what does she mean? I could have said, "Oh, you mean to California?
Right.
Where did you come from?" You know, I think she was a displaced person. And, you know, in those days they had a lot of them come over. In fact, here in Seattle, I worked for a doctor that was from Germany. And so I just looked at her. I didn't even bother to say anything. I just walked away. I figured, you know, but that was the only time, well, except that I was applying for a position assisting a doctor. In the minute they saw who I was, they said it was filled. Well, maybe it was filled. I don't know, you know.
Right.
But, so I stopped going to these small offices. So I went to the, applied at the hospital. They were a little more lenient, you know. And the girl I worked under, and well, I was principally hired to draw blood for chemistry and for serology. They have routine serology for every patient that came in. So I was working under her, drawing bloods for serology. And she was the nicest person. And she sort of took me under her wings, and we ran the serology together. But I was sorry after my pathologist, you know, said what he did, I just couldn't stay there. So I left. In fact, everybody in that lab was nice.
That's good.
Even the head of the lab, just really a nice person. So I didn't feel, you know, anything there. I mean, no discrimination there, but
was it stronger on the West Coast?
No, by the time I came over here,
It was pretty
yeah, it was fine.
What year did you come to Seattle?
Came back 52.
Okay.
I got married in Chicago. I had the 3 children, and what happened was my husband was the only son with 5 sisters.
Okay.
And you know, first generation, well, Japanese, the boy is very important. Well, the father had surgery, and I guess he thought he was on his deathbed. He kept calling for my husband. And I was on the West Coast visiting my parents with the 3 kids. And so what he just gave away, packed whatever he thought was important. And one was the television, pots and pans. And he just gave away most of the things. And he came back to, he was headed for Seattle. Only he came down to visit us before coming here, and he said he'll find a place. As soon as he finds a place, he'll call us, you know, to come up to Seattle. So that's what we did.
So why did he pick Seattle?
He?
Yeah.
His folks were living here.
Oh, okay.
See,
I get
he
it.
came
Right. He
because
was in
his
Chicago
father,
and he was
yeah.
back to Seattle. Okay, I understand.
His father's calling for
Okay.
him.
Okay.
It is that honey, he survived long. I don't know how many years it was, but anyway, so we came here. Actually, we came here with 3 children and nothing else.
Yeah.
So we had to sort of work from scratch.
Did you move to this house at that time?
No.
Where were you living?
Well, we lived in a, I guess a 3-room apartment with 3 kids.
Where was it?
It was on Spruce Street, I think.
Okay.
And then we moved into a little house that was owned by a Japanese church. And, well, we lived there for only a couple of years, I guess, at the most. And then we moved into an upstairs apartment. My sister-in-law and her husband had bought a 2-story house, and they had an apartment upstairs, so we moved in there. And then from there we moved next door because my sister-in-law bought that house. So then we moved in there, and then finally my husband and I bought this house.
When did you buy this house?
In 73.
Okay.
So that's about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Good 30 years ago. Yeah. Only we didn't buy it in our name. We bought it in my son's name. So if anything happened to us, you know, we were not young when we bought it. So he would take over, and so then I lost my husband 10 years ago. So and then my son had to move back because he was working for this police department as a crime prevention, and he didn't know he was on grant. And the grant ran out, so did his job. And so I told him, "Oh, move back until, you know, you decide whatever you." So he moved back, and then they picked him up. The city picked him up, and he was crime prevention coordinator for Garfield area. Now that's his stomping grounds. See, he went to Garfield. And so then, he heard that they were going to cut back on crime prevention coordinators. And he being way down here, he said, I probably wouldn't have a position when they start cut back. So he was going to get riffed again. So then, but the park department wanted him. See, he worked for the park department until he went to work for the coordinator. In fact, he worked for Rotary, Boys and Girls Club, for a while. And then he worked at CAYA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then he went out to as a coordinator. Then he's back at Garfield Park Department. Yeah.
That's great.
So anyway, it's then his brother works for Sound Transit.
Oh wow.
So I keep telling him, when are you going to get rapid transit around here?
Yeah.
I hate this riding into town. You know, it blew my mind when I came here. Every time I wanted to go north, I had to go into town to go out. And like my children were going to University of Washington.
Oh.
Well, you know, of course the boys found jobs and they worked all the time they were going to University of Washington. So they had an apartment nearby. And then they bought a car. Well, my daughter, every time she wanted to get to school, she would have to go into town. And so it's a good thing my husband was on my evening shift. He used to drop her off on the campus, and she would take the bus back. But that's, and me, I got a job at Veterans General Medical Research.
Oh, yeah.
And to get to there from off of Jackson, I would have to go down to 4th Avenue, transfer. Whereas I lived on 25th, and it was a straight shot up to, yeah.
Right, yeah.
But,
That's
I mean, that's
crazy.
the way it was, the
Yeah.
transportation. Because I was used to living in towns that had real good transportation. But anyway, and then I worked 16 years at the VA, and I worked 9 years at Children's. And when it snowed, well, I decided, I better not drive, so I took the bus. It took me 2.5 hours to get there.
I believe it.
So I was thinking, God, I better prepare to get home.
Yeah.
To get out there.
Exactly.
But anyway, so I worked 25 years in electron microscopy. In fact, I helped establish the one up in the VA. And there, we even had diagnostic electron microscopy. And that was in the main hospital. So we moved there, and I ran the lab. And then from there, Well, this couldn't stand my boss after 16 years. I mean, I wasn't going to stand for verbal abuse. And it would have been that I report it or move on. So I decided I'll move on. And after I moved on to Children's Orthopedic, he lost a 5-year grant. He had a 5-year heart grant. And if you don't produce, yeah. So then he asked me to come back. Well, you know, I wasn't going to go back because, I mean, if I went back, you know, who knows? He may go right back to treating me the way he did, you know, before I left. So I said, none of that. I'm getting too old for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I decided I would look for something, but EM jobs were rarities. You had to know, you know, if someone was leaving. And this girl that I trained was at Children's, and she was leaving. So she called me and said, you know.
Oh, that's great.
And so I went to work there after she left. And worked for 9 years. I would have worked another year. If a boss thought that I would work for, you know, but my equipment there was terrible. And being on the bottom of the list for getting any kind of equipment, I think something happened to my nose, and I really had a real bad bloody nose, and that scared me. So I was already turning retiring age.
Right.
So I had to tell my boss, I gotta retire. And he said, oh, I thought you'd work another year or so. And I said, no, that nosebleed really scared me, I told him. So when I left, what did they do? Get him next guy, brand new hood, brand new everything, you know.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. But I guess if I'd have stayed, I probably wouldn't have gotten anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing new. But anyway, that's life. So I retired in '88.
That's great.
And as far as cooking, and back to cooking. Since I cook for my son now, you know, and he's not that crazy about Japanese food. I fix it. Some things he likes, like teriyaki pork, teriyaki chicken, miso salmon. And like fresh vegetables, spinach, the way I fix Japanese style. He'll eat broccoli, Japanese style, asparagus, Japanese style, beans. He likes it both ways. You know, I cook it both ways. I flip-flop. And of course, he loves my tempura. But
can you tell me, teriyaki seems like, you know, there's just tons of little teriyaki places all over the place. How does that compare to like the restaurant teriyaki? How does that compare to what you make?
Oh, well, I think I like mine better. Yeah, there are restaurants that make teriyaki. It's not bad, you know, but to me, I like my meat soaked a little more, with a little more flavor. And I think if you go into the better restaurants, it's not bad, but you know, like places like Yasco's, they're not Japanese, you know. And there aren't that many Japanese restaurants that are run by Japanese or cooked. And I cannot stand that Yoshida sauce. But so I make my own teriyaki, mixture.
Okay.
And one secret my mother told me, when you're cooking, use 2 spice. I mean, I don't mean spice. If you use salt, you use sugar. You know.
Okay.
So that's how
So kind of balance.
It brings out the flavor of a lot of things. Like if I'm soaking my meat, and my teri sauce is, I use, of course, soy sauce, sugar, put a little bit of salt in it, and I use mirin, you know, sweet sake that you use for flavoring. And I use sherry wine, American cherry wine. Well, I could use sake, but it's so expensive. So I use sherry, cheaper, and I soak it in that for as long as I want. But I don't soak it overnight. That makes the meat tough. So 2-3 hours, you know, is the maximum. And then what I do is, like meat, chicken wings, say for instance, I cook it in a pan on top of the stove until it's done. Then I put it in my oven and broil it, so that it isn't wet or sticky, you know. It gets the stickiness out and brings out the flavor.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
In fact, you can broil it until it gets, you know, you get a little bit of char. Char. It would be like, you know, cooking out on the charcoal broiler, you know. But I don't. My son cooks. He got rid of his charcoal broiler. He got gas grill.
Oh yeah.
but you know, he does all the cooking.
I was noticing you've got a kind of a frying setup out here.
Oh, that's my son's.
What's he up to out there?
Turkey fryer.
Oh,
yeah.
I've heard of this.
Oh, did you?
The whole turkey.
Yeah.
Is it good?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. He had a birthday May 1st. So we couldn't have it May 1st. We had to extend it 2 weeks from that time. And so he decided it would be a open house, open room. He wanted to show his band guys the room downstairs and his birthday combined. And so he said, fry the band group one turkey, and then he wanted his relatives to be over in the evening, so he'll fry another one. So he fried a 14-pounder, and those guys, there were how many of them? There were only about 5 of them that came. They practically killed that 14-pound turkey. Because the skin part, you're not supposed to eat, I guess, but, the skin part's the best part. And what he does is inject it.
Oh, wow.
He has a big syringe. Real mean-looking syringe. But he injects inside too. Okay. Cavity, you know. The other, the last week, not last week, this last time he fried it, he only did it overnight. Because he was so tied up with other things. I kept saying, when are you going to inject the turkey? And he finally got to it the night before. And so, but still it gave a good flavor. So he did one early in the morning, and he had his nephew come and watch it. Because the nephew wanted to see how it was done. Yeah, he's a good cook too. And so he did one in the morning, and then the relatives were supposed to come in the evening, so van people were supposed to get 1 to 4, and then the relatives 4 to whatever, you know. And so then when the van guys left, then he put the other turkey on.
So how long do you have to fry it?
It's 3.5 minutes per pound.
Okay.
So it doesn't take that long, you know. Of course, if you have I don't know whether a 20-pound would fit in there.
Yeah.
I got a 16-pound, and that was the second bird. And I think, well, maybe 20-pound is about the maximum.
So that would be.
Yeah. It has to fit in that, you know.
Right, yeah.
And of course, you have to have it at a certain degree.
Right.
Yeah. And so with that, we had barazushi I made. You know what barazushi is? It's rice flavored with vinegar mixture with chopped up vegetable. And I do the carrot, bamboo. I did burdock this time. And shiitake. You know what that is. And you chop it up and you mix it into the rice. Then I sprinkle it with either sesame seed, you know, change flavors there, or sprinkle it with shredded seaweed, or peas, boiled peas to give it color, you know. So you can use a lot of different things to whatever, you know. Some people slice, they make egg mixture, real thin egg mixture, then, you know, chop it up and sprinkle on top. Let's see what other things.
What do you mean a thin egg mixture? Like a...
Well, you make you beat your egg, put a little sugar in it, and then you fry it in a frying pan, you know, and make it real thin, like crepes, you know. And then, take it out and slice it into ribbons, you know, small.
Yeah, nice.
It's just for color.
Yeah.
And I've used, you could do beans. A lot of the restaurants, not restaurants, grocery stores that sell that have, you know, chopped beans in it for color. What else did I have? Oh, pickled tomatoes. Have you ever eaten pickled tomatoes?
I think so.
That's the recipe I'm going to give you.
Oh, good. Okay. Tell me about it.
And what else did I have? Oh, barbecued pork. I had cooked that a couple of days before, and I froze it. So then I just thawed it out and sliced it. And else did I have? Oh, I had vegetables. Asparagus was cheap. I had broccoli. Then I had my special Thousand Island dressing, sort of.
Nice.
But most of them are, more for the turkey and
Yeah.
But
great.
and then my niece said she wanted to fix something, so she fixed Chinese chicken salad, and hers was with cabbage and sesame and chicken, and he asked his sister to make a shrimp dip and lemon bars for himself. And so, and and I bought the cake.
Where did you get it?
Larry's.
Okay.
I bought 2 cakes, one chocolate and one white, and a pie. Nobody touched the pie.
It sounds like there was so much food.
Well, yeah. Well, I thought, fellas,
right?
they would eat, but no.
Well,
They didn't even want cake.
14-pound turkey, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. They were fill up other things. So, anyway, yeah. I guess that was all I fixed. I can't remember fixing anything else. Oh, yeah, my niece, yeah, she fixed the, but anyway.
I was going to ask you if there are things that are traditional things to eat when you're sick. If there's.
Oh yeah, I like rice gruel, and I like it with yam in it.
Yam in it, wow.
See, my folks come from an area where for breakfast, my dad would have that gruel. It's not really thick. They cook it real watery with tea in it.
Okay.
And with yam in it.
Wow, so like cut up, chopped up yam?
Yeah,
Wow.
And so I learned to eat it that way, and that sort of satisfies my palate when I'm not feeling good. In fact, I don't even have to have the tea in it, just straight water, but real loose. I like that with pickled plum, umeboshi.
Yeah.
It is sour, that. But, yeah, or soups, I think, now. But my husband, he wouldn't eat that in between. I would fix it once in a while, just to have it, say, like for breakfast or in between eating. He said, I'm not going to eat that. So I ain't sick.
So he thought of it as
I guess his mother used to fix it. Especially when my children were real small and they would get sick and have diarrhea. My doctor told me to do that. Is to boil it and make it real thick and feed it to them. It was sort of like Imodium.
Right.
was supposed to. Like emollient. But, they would eat it, so.
That's good.
Well, I guess, I think the secret to my cooking would be what I learned from my mother. And I still practice that. It's not too spice, it's too seasoning is what it is. So, I know that salt enhances flavor. Sugar. We use, in our cooking, we use a lot of soy sauce and sugar. But my cooking, since I learned it from my mother, is on the sweet side. And it's because of where she comes from. They say Osaka cooks, their food is a little sweeter. And then there are parts of Japan where they don't use sugar at all. Like where my husband's folks came from. Everything is salty. Because that's what preserved the food. They're from Kumamoto, which is way on the southern part of Japan. And it's tropical. And in order to keep things, you had to use a lot of salt. And so they like salty things.
So when you got married, did he like your sweet cooking?
He liked it more than... he liked it too sweet for me, even.
He was making up for lost time.
Yes, like sukiyaki and things, he would like it really sweet. And I couldn't stand it that sweet. I said, just put on sugar.
Your own sugar.
Yeah. But, and then there are places where the flavoring is faint, real light. Of course, it's all in what you get used to. Yeah. And so when I cook like what my mother used, And she was considered a pretty good cook. She used to cook for like Asparagus Farm and Grape Farms. Yeah, so, and when you do that, you have to satisfy all different palates, So, I try to cook that way when I'm having, a lot of people over, but as far as, I pretty much flavor it the way I would like it, and I guess...
It sounds great.
So anyway, now, this recipe you want, does it have to be authentic Japanese? Because you could get all kinds of recipes out of Japanese cookbooks. In fact, we have a real good one out our church. And I'm a member of St. Peter's Episcopal Church.
Oh, okay.
And our church was known for having the best tasting sushi.
Oh, wow.
And they have cookbooks,
Do you have one here?
Yeah, I have one, but...
Well, I'd love to, maybe I could get maybe 2 or 3 recipes from you.
Oh.
If you're willing to,
yeah.
to do that. Is that spam like spam?
What?
What is that?
Spam.
Like the meat?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Wow.
Spam.
What does it say
And
spam?
I think, this is put out by the church that spam sandwich sushi.
Really?
It's a sushi. Yeah, if you want to try that, get the
see.
recipe out of there. I've never tried it because when I say Spam, my husband used to flip.
Why? Did he get sick of it?
Yeah. You know why? While we were in camp, that's a lot about that and these real fat wieners.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Spam and wieners.
yeah, Spam, wieners. That's what my husband says. Don't buy any Spam. I don't eat any Spam. The thing of it is, see, the cooks they weren't the regular cooks.
Mm-hmm.
They just, well, out of self-defense, they became cooks in a mess hall. See, every block in camp, ward, I should say, every set of, there was 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many barracks now. Well, if I looked it up, I could tell you, but there was about 10 barracks to a ward,
Okay.
and there was one mess hall.
Okay.
And they did the cooking.
Who's there?
The cooks there that were hired as a cook.
So it wasn't,
they
you didn't
weren't,
get to cook your own food
yeah,
at all?
No, we
Somebody
didn't have
from
a
the
kitchen in
outside
our
was
barracks.
cooking. Okay.
We just
But
had
they didn't hire from
one
within the camp
open
either.
area. Whole family had to live there,
Yeah.
sleep there. So, I mean, gee, we were teenagers, you know. So, my father, being clever, he put up a divider for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And although I didn't live in that apartment too long because I was working at the hospital, so I moved up closer to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
We were allowed to.
Okay.
And so it was my folks and my younger sister. And so she blocked off an area for
Mm-hmm.
her bed, you know. We had cots, and
So
then we had a pot-belly stove in the center for heat.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to go after coal to burn. And then the bathrooms were in between the barracks in another, you know, single unit building.
Mm-hmm.
Then the laundry, then the mess hall.
Okay.
So we went to mess hall. So what they did was round up anybody that wanted to work and made them cooks. So, you know,
So were they Japanese?
Huh?
They were Japanese?
Well, yeah, we were all
okay.
Japanese.
So they're from within the camp. They
Yeah.
got to be the
Mhm.
But they weren't necessarily cooks
No.
in their real life.
I don't know. I mean, some of them may have been a laundry owner, you
Right,
know,
right.
and he's cooking in the mess hall.
Right.
So, unless you had somebody that did cooking outside, I mean, gee, what do you do with a wiener? What do you do with Spam?
So the government would supply
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff, and then this
Mhm.
person would cook it. So what else did you eat besides Spam and wieners?
Well, once in a while they gave us, you know, I didn't eat in that mess hall that often. Or they fixed things like stew.
Mm-hmm.
But see, my folks, they didn't care for things like lamb. And my dad didn't care too much for beef.
Mm-hmm.
He'll eat pork or chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they weren't used to the American style of food, see? So it was really hard on them for a while. So then what my mother would do was to get our ration, bring it home, and do it over again, cook it over again, you know.
On the potbelly stove.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or in the summer, I don't know how she cooked, yeah, because we didn't have, I don't know how she fixed things for my dad. And when we first got into camp, they gave us for breakfast scrambled egg with brain. I had never eaten brain. I had heard about brain because I had a physiology teacher in high school that loved it. And he said that's the best thing. And,
Wow.
scrambled. Look at it, it's gray,
It looks like
Oh, what is that?
Oh, no.
And then I knew it was brain, but I didn't dare tell my folks. Oh, I think they would have gotten sick there. Anyway, what were you?
If it makes you feel any better, everybody else I've talked to who lived through World War II got sick of Spam too.
Oh, did they? Yeah, I bet
on
they
the
did.
outside as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd love to just see this.
Yeah. Well.
Can I borrow this book for a few days? Would that be okay?
Oh, gee.
It's fine to say no.
This is the only one I have, and I can't get another one.
Okay.
It's how about you pick out what you want?
Okay.
And I'll copy it for you.
Oh, that would be great.
Okay.
All right.
Just
I'll
let me know which
on
one
here.
you want.
Okay.
This is from our church.
Oh, okay.
So you could borrow these two.
Oh, that would be great. Oh, great. Book one.
Okay, and
sure.
pick out whatever you want.
So, and will this have some of those things you were telling me about, your special things for New Year's? Some of that?
Yeah, New Year's thing. And I think...
oh, this is wonderful.
See, this is book 2. Okay, now, I think this has... One book had... yeah, most of the things that we serve at New Year should be in this book.
Okay. Well, if I find that I'm missing something, I'll call you.
Yeah, give me a call because what I do is take it out of different books,
Right. So you told me about makizushi. And this is the ebizushi. These are all things you talked about.
Ebizushi, chirashi, sushi. Chirashi, from what I gather, is not what people think it is. This has seafood in it.
Okay. I don't know.
Barazushi is the one that I talked about.
Okay.
Now, that has vinegar-flavored rice with the vegetables, flavored vegetables. Now, that has to be cooked in dashi and flavored.
Okay.
And
okay.
that...
is that going to be in here?
Yeah, probably in that one. It might be repeated in this one, too. So...
look at all these things. This is so great.
Let me...
oh, and then there's that cucumber.
Oh, Sunamono?
Yeah. Let me see. I wrote these things down. I shouldn't be just guessing there. And you talked about that sweetened black bean one? Mamina.
Oh, well, that you can buy in a can.
Okay, so that's it. And then,
and I'll show you what that looks like. In fact, what I was gonna...
oh, perfect.
well, I wouldn't be a Japanese, but the pickled tomato.
Yeah, pickled tomato.
You know?
I would love to get that.
I've served it, and people, ooh, pickled tomato. So I guess, people don't.
It's not common.
Well, the reason I did that, it might be my own invention, I don't know. But the reason I did that was because I had a lot of tomato, no cucumber.
Oh.
And so, and I had green pepper. You gotta put green pepper there. I just slice it in, you know, sort of real thin slice. But I had these tomatoes and I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with it, you know? I have to use it up. So I decided, well, I'll make a vinegar tomato. And just the vinegar tomato alone, you know, didn't look like it. And I love green pepper, but green pepper, you just can't eat green pepper, you know. Well, I suppose I could have fried it, but my family doesn't care that much for fried green pepper. In fact, for stuffed pepper, you know, like my son, he would take the inside out and leave the pepper. So then I decided, well, fresh green pepper, I'll slice in there. And I thought, oh, this is good for Christmas, green and red.
Yeah.
But it's really refreshing in the summertime.
Okay.
Instead of the cucumber, if I had cucumber, I probably would have done the cucumber, you know, slow-mo. But since I didn't have the but I had the tomato, I just pickled it. This is the first time I've tasted, you know, I thought, oh, well, maybe it is.
Yeah.
You know, I've never heard of other people eating pickled tomato.
Well, that sounds great. I'd love to get that recipe.
The vinegared tomato,
Okay.
which is really, you know, a lot of people grow tomatoes, you know. And
you get them all at the same time?
Yeah, and then
This just sounds like a great recipe.
so now the vinegar measurement I use for that vinegared, if you, I guess it would be the best to give you the Heinz vinegar. I use the Japanese vinegar.
Okay.
It isn't as
Is it rice vinegar or?
yeah, it's a rice vinegar,
Okay.
and it's not as pungent. But if you use a Japanese vinegar, use the I use the 2/3 cup Japanese vinegar,
Okay.
1/3 cup sugar,
Okay.
and 1 tablespoon salt.
Okay.
And you heat and dissolve, you know, make sure it's dissolved. Now, if you don't use all of it, you can keep it in a bottle
Okay.
and use it, say, on cucumber next time, you know.
Okay.
Because I make up a bottle and I use it for my sushi, you know, or I use it for, well, like the tomato or cucumber, anything else I want, you know, a vinegar on. And what you do is just slice up the tomato and slice pepper, strips, you know, in strips.
Green pepper?
Yeah, green pepper, bell pepper.
Okay.
I think people grow tomatoes and pepper, and sometimes they have such a big crop they don't know what to do.
Oh, that sounds good.
I know some people put it up, but you know, it makes a good instead of a salad, say. In the summertime, it's refreshing, and of course a cucumber too, you know. Then There's an American dish cucumber that you slice it not as thin as the Japanese style.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do the Japanese style, you have to take the seeds out.
Yeah.
And then slice it real thin and salt it a little while, just to wilt it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do that, it's to put it in the fridge to
Mm-hmm.
keep it crispy. And what I use is the English cucumber.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's crispy. It's always crispy. A lot of times the American cucumber, unless you use a pickling cucumber, it isn't as crispy.
Okay.
And what I do is I use the vinegar. You don't have to use a lot of the vinegar. And grate ginger in it, fresh ginger.
Okay.
It gives it a little bit different taste.
This is what you do for the tomato or
No,
the cucumber?
cucumber.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, tomato, I put in a little bit of black pepper.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then just so you put the tomatoes and the peppers into this
In
stuff.
a bowl, and then sprinkle a little bit of black pepper, and then the vinegar. You don't have to use that much vinegar, but keep stirring it a little,
Okay. And then you eat it?
Yeah, that's ready to eat then,
So, and then with the cucumber, you add fresh ginger grated.
Grated ginger.
Okay.
That refreshes it more.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of some of the restaurants you go to, they put kelp in it,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of kelp, just put ginger.
You like ginger? That sounds great. All right.
And if you're, having it for a relatively full dinner,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of cucumber with that ginger in it is very refreshing.
Yeah, that sounds great. The tea made me think of it. I have a lot of stories about coffee from other people, but I don't have very many stories about tea. Tea is kind of a big thing in Japan.
Oh, yes, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about just what kind of tea you like?
Oh, any sencha.
Okay.
Sencha is the finest tea.
Okay.
And I like coffee. But I will drink tea with Japanese. If I had my choice, I would drink coffee. But I still like tea if it's good tea.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband was a kind that liked this real bitter tea.
Mm.
And so I went into bags. But good sencha, I really love.
I like that. And what are these?
Oh, those are persimmon seeds.
Oh, really? Wow.
I mean, they're rice crackers.
Rice crackers, okay.
Yeah, rice crackers with this one isn't so hot, but there are these that have red pepper in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's real hot.
Mm.
And then they have some with wasabi.
Mm-hmm.
You know what wasabi is?
Mm-hmm.
Horseradish.
Right.
But I get the plain one because I can't take the hot.
Mm-hmm.
What you call?
Sure.
And if I serve it, unless I know that they can eat the hot. So.
Well, I do need to go pretty soon. Is there anything else? Anything else you want to share with me?
Oh, he's a. Of course, my sons are pretty big, And his grandfather on his father's side was a big man.
Mm-hmm.
He lived to be 100. Yeah. So there's longevity. My dad was 90 when he died. Mm-hmm. My mother died early. Mm-hmm. She developed cancer in her liver. Well, I think it came from her intestines and then traveled to her liver. So, and in those days, you know, they weren't that active in chemotherapies and all that. Right. So she died when she was 67, I guess. Wow. But yeah, my dad was. My in-laws is another one. My father-in-law lived to be 83, and the mother-in-law, she would have been 91 if she had lived a couple more months. Oh. Yeah. So. Yeah. So they lived alone. Yeah. My dad was 90. Mm-hmm. He would have been 91. No, he would have been 90 in a few months. Mm-hmm. And he used to say, I lived a long life and I could go. But you know, once I go, I can't come back, so I'm not in a hurry.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
He used to tell us all kinds of stories that, you know. Mm-hmm. And then, mother of a friend of mine, they used to live across the street in Camp from us, and she used to tell us what they went through, you know. I think, to me, I have to give a lot of credit to the first generation and what they went through to survive even, you know. Yeah. They didn't speak English, and yet they had to, you know, survive doing everyday things. Yeah. This lady was telling me when she came over, well, she was supposed to go to the store to buy some bacon. So the husband told her, now buy 2 bits bacon. And you get quite a bit for 25 cents in those days. You know, 2 bits is 25 cents. Right. So she couldn't remember what her husband said. She didn't know what bit she said. So, but she needed the bacon, so she went up to the butcher and said, give me son of a bitch bacon. And she said, he told her to go.
Oh, no.
So she had to leave the store without the bacon.
That's great. Wow. That's a great story. Wow.
All the stories that we used to hear.
Yeah.